Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock. Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
It's almost time, kids. The clock is ticking. Be in front of your TV sets for the Horror-thon. And remember the big giveaway at 9. Don't miss it. And don't forget to wear your masks. The clock is ticking. It's almost time.
Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock. Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
Hey gals and guys, this is Michael Ferrari of Cinema to Meep. Welcome to the 4th Patreon episode. Thank you guys for supporting the show so much. It means a lot, and I just wanted to get one in for you this month, hopefully by Halloween. Been a crazy month, been a very busy month for me, so I'm glad I could finally get to this now. I've been watching a lot of horror movies for Halloween. I don't know about you guys, but that's what I do. And I just, any excuse to watch horror movies, I will take it. Usually I don't need excuses at all, I'll just watch them. But I definitely watched a lot this month, and it's been fun. I mean, it's been fun just revisiting movies that I've, watched a bunch over the years. It's been fun watching some newer things. I tend not to watch the newer things as much. I feel like I'm always setting myself up for disappointment. And, that segues easily into going to see the new Halloween movie in theaters. The new Halloween sequel named Halloween. I was super, super duper excited about this movie. Jamie Lee Curtis returning to her iconic role as Laurie Strode was something that made me really happy, and because she was so into promoting this film, and she seemed so proud of this film and her work on it, and the experience making it seemed like a good thing for her. So I don't know, I just went with the hype because I was excited. I was excited for her. I was excited to see a new Halloween movie, excited to see Michael Myers back on the screen. And so I went with my wife that Thursday night it opened, and fully prepared to have a blast. Unfortunately, I didn't think I had a blast watching this movie. I'm not going to get into spoilers because I know it's been out a couple of weeks. It's been the number one movie. There's still a few of you out there who need to still see it, and you might be waiting for actual Halloween to see it. I'm not sure, but for those of you who haven't seen it, I'm not gonna get into spoilers, but I will give you my critique of some of the things I didn't like about it. So if you're not really wanting to hear this, you could forward ahead a couple of minutes. But really, I was disappointed in this movie. I saw it twice, actually. I went again a couple of days later. I saw it at a better theater with like one of those Dolby theaters that has great sound, huge screen. So I just wanted to make sure my viewing experience was more optimal than the first time I saw it. But the first time I saw it, I just really was a bit underwhelmed by it. Like, I really was excited to see Laurie on the screen. It was great to see Michael Myers on the screen, but for some reason, everything else about the movie just didn't really click with me. Like, a lot of the characters and just the vibe just didn't really work for me. I just felt like it wasn't a true Halloween sequel. And that kind of bugged me. I mean, I can go into the into the details of why some of these didn't work, but again, I'm trying to avoid some spoilers. But I don't know, some choices that were made in the movie just kind of just kind of made me question, like, did I really enjoy this? Or, I mean, I just didn't really feel, I didn't feel satisfied. As a slasher movie, I will say it's an entertaining enough movie. Go in with that, maybe. For me, as a proper Halloween sequel, or a movie that's purporting to be a direct sequel to the first movie, I don't think it holds up as well. I mean, I went back and revisited Halloween H2O, a movie that I liked a lot when I first saw it, but then multiple viewings, I just did not get into it. I felt it was a little too, like, the teen characters were pretty annoying, and I just felt like it wasn't that great as much as I liked it the first time viewing. But going back and rewatching Halloween H2O, I'm like, wow, this is a much better movie than I remember it being. I think that movie really gets Laurie Strode right in terms of how she dealt with her trauma, 20 years after the fact of what happened in part 1 and part 2. I liked that it made her a strong character. She was someone who was in charge, large and in charge. She was the headmistress of a boarding school, and she was the boss. And she was the one that kids were afraid of, because she's going to tell it like it is. And she had a very hard-edged character in that, and I think that kind of reflects a lot of Jamie Lee Curtis's own personality. I think Jamie Lee Curtis is a wonderful person. I absolutely adore her and everything she does and what she stands for. But there's a part of her personality you can see where she's very strong and strong-willed, and which is completely different from the Laurie Strode of the first movie. And I like that she brought that vulnerability to the character and in the first movie, but in H2O you find Laurie 20 years later, and she's a functional alcoholic. She doesn't take shit, but also she's given a romance to make her a bit softer, and I like that. I like what the things. I like where H2O went with her character, and she's in a lot more scenes in H2O, which is another problem I have with the new one. She actually has a much smaller role than you think she would in this new version. H40 for all intents and purposes for this podcast. She's not in as many scenes. She's in many more scenes in H2O, and that movie is like an 86-minute movie. It's a pretty short, direct to the point kind of movie, whereas this one is a bit longer. There's some unnecessary characters in this one. I would say, like, the podcasters that are kind of basically used as a plot device to get the plot moving. And there's some sloppy editing with some of that stuff and the payoff of those characters for sure. And then there's another character that's introduced, I would say midway through the movie, and there's some twists and turns with that, and I just didn't enjoy that at all. I just kind of felt like all these unnecessary additions to the new Halloween just kind of took away from Laurie's character. They just more running time is devoted to these other characters, teens, and those other characters, and it just didn't really work for me. Like, there's jokes about peanut butter on someone's dick. It's just like there's like some things some humor that felt out of place, and characters that just didn't really fit in my vision of the Halloween universe. So, I understand this movie is not going to be for absolutely everybody, but at the same time it's trying to please everybody. So it just has some, whatever issues. But again, like I said, as a slasher movie, it's enjoyable. Michael Myers kills a bunch of people, so that's what you want kind of out of a Halloween movie. But as a sequel in the Halloween universe, I would rate it lower than quite a few of them. So that's that. But I'll revisit it maybe on Blu-ray again, and I think there's definitely some scenes that were cut and rearranged, and there was a test screening that changed a bunch of things, including the ending. So if that stuff ends up on the Blu-ray, I'll definitely check it out. And yeah, I haven't been watching a lot. I've been trying to watch a lot of movies for this show, for the Halloween podcast that I'm recording soon, and so I've been focusing on that stuff. I watched The Haunting of Hill House, or at least I watched half of that show, and I fell asleep around the 4th episode. I said I need to get back to it, return to Hill House, and finish it up. I liked it. I wasn't in love with it, but I liked it. So I just need to go back and finish it and see to get a proper evaluation of it. It hasn't been, it hasn't been a lot else that I've been watching other than these things for the podcast. So I will. So I'll go move on to what we're talking about tonight. Now, for this podcast, I kind of wanted to go retro and also new retro, meaning I wanted to discuss things, horror movies, of course, that I have in my collection on VHS that have kind of like fallen through the cracks of time because a lot of these things haven't been released on DVD or Blu-ray. So I wanted to talk about stuff in my horror collection. I've been posting a lot of them on Instagram. So kind of to complement those posts on Instagram, I wanted just to go through some of these movies in my collection and talk about them. Hopefully, they'll get released on Blu-ray, and then segue into talking about the horror Blu-ray releases of this year that I really liked and that I welcome to my collection. And I think it's a good way to kind of do old school and new school in terms of media, and just that's kind of what was been on my mind lately. So I just wanted to just get into that.
Oh, I do enjoy an evening with a little light entertainment. But when your video heads get dirty, you lose your picture. Not a pretty sight. Happily, this new Polaroid video cassette will help you. It actually cleans your heads as it plays, so dirty heads needn't haunt you. New Polaroid video cassettes. Get the picture?
And that's kind of how I am with my collecting. I still hold dear to my heart these VHS tapes that I've been collecting for now 30 years. It's 1988 is when I was really getting into collecting VHS. So that was 30 years ago this year. Wow. So a lot of these tapes have been in my collection a long, long time. I've been watching horror movies since I've been very little, which is very unlike my own kids who don't want to watch horror movies right now. They're pretty young. My son's 6. He has no interest in horror movies. My daughter is 3.5, going on 4. She has more of an interest in being scared, so we'll see how that turns out. But so I don't watch a lot of horror movies when the kids are around, obviously. When they're a bit older, we'll see what happens. Maybe I can show them a lot of these VHS tapes. Say, hey, look at these artifacts of old. There were these places, these magical places called video stores, and I would go into these video stores and buy these VHS tapes if they had like a used bin, or I'd ask them to sell off one of their copies, or I'd go to some place, and there were several places in New York City that I can go to that sold previously viewed tapes. Several stores that just did that. They sold tapes, they sold CDs and cassette tapes, a lot of used things. So I would hit up a lot of these places. I would hit up my local video stores, and I would get these copies of get these videotapes. And I had quite a big video collection. I had over 1,000 tapes at some point, which is a lot because videotapes are not, they're not DVDs or Blu-rays. They take up a lot more space. They're heavy. They're not easy to move around. So when I started moving around, like in my early 20s to late 20s, I would get rid of some things for sure. I would trade some VHS tapes. I would sell them. get other things. And then when DVD came out, I pretty much upgraded whatever I had on VHS to DVD. So my 1,000 plus tapes went down, shrunk down eventually over time. I feel like with Blu-ray, there's been a lot of focus on these cult and horror movies that have kind of been overlooked over time. So a good amount of those have been replaced, my VHS tapes, with Blu-rays. So yeah, I probably have like 200-300 maybe left, maybe 200, and a good chunk of them are horror. And I really do like looking at them. I think there's nothing better than looking at a VHS tape. I think you get the full effect of the home video experience. I think it was at its best with watching, just that the heftiness of a VHS tape, the artwork, which always felt so elaborate for a lot of these movies, or just like the hand-drawn quality to it that you don't find anymore. I think nowadays with Blu-ray, when they're not using the original artwork, they're doing these retro artworks that make them look like comic books for the most part. A lot of these Blu-rays are just... The artwork to me doesn't say... it's more of like a fan's point of view, or a comic book fan's point of view of a movie. That to me, the artwork from a lot of these movies, the original artwork for these movies, even though they might be low budget looking or cheap, I think those felt a little bit more honest of the time. So I like looking at the artworks to VHS tapes a lot more. To me, those felt like they captured the magic and spirit of the movie somehow better. So yeah, that's something I maybe lean towards with VHS tapes. I know there are people out there who collect a lot of VHS tapes, even though there's better versions of them on DVD and Blu-ray, and I totally understand that. I tend to upgrade them to those formats, DVD and Blu-ray, when they're available, because I want the best possible presentation of these movies, because I think beyond special features and artworks and stuff, I think the most important aspect of a movie is the movie itself, and I really want that movie to look as good as possible. That's just where I'm coming from with that. So so I look at these videotapes. 315, The Moment of Truth is one of them. This is a movie that came out in around 86 or so. It had Deborah Foreman and Adam Baldwin. It's like a teen action kind of. It was kind of played up as a teen action movie, but a lot of these movies that I feel are like where these exploitation movies that happen in high schools in the 80s feel more like horror movies to me. Like say The New Kids or Class of 1984. It's in that kind of vein. Those are like horror, straight up horror movies to me. Like, not only do you have to deal with the horror of high school in general, going to high school, you have to deal with like these crazy characters, these crazy punks, or bullies, and people who just want to make your high school life complete and utter hell, and that's really the true horror of high school. 315 is a good one. It was released on Media Home Entertainment. It's definitely a movie that needs to get a release on DVD and Blu-ray. I feel like it has a bit of a audience that would definitely check it out. It has Deborah Foreman in it from Valley Girl. I mean, you'd want it for that alone. She's the lead in it, along with Adam Baldwin, like I mentioned. And it's a good little movie, and I think it needs a little more love. And I feel like, yes, time will hopefully do that. The Babysitter is a movie I revisited recently. It's a really creepy little TV movie that came out around 1980. Thorny and I put it out on VHS because it was like it was a nice little like those clamshells from the Thorny and My's. Those are pretty durable. They kind of held up over the years because of those cases. It really helps. And I like the movie. It's not like a perfect it's not Peter Murdoch directed The Changeling right before this, and it's not quite The Changeling scary. Nowhere near that, but I like, as a TV movie from that time period, it has a creepy vibe. I think Stephanie Zimbalist is kind of creepy in it, playing this babysitter of the title, who's kind of infiltrating this family, and getting between the marriage of Patty Duke and William Shatner. If you hear like trucks in the background, construction stuff, there's that just happens to be happening on my block today. That they decided, okay, Michael's going to record a podcast, so we're going to move our trucks in and start digging up the street, even in suburbia. That's what happens. But I like The Babysitter. I would love to see it come out again on a DVD and Blu-ray. Blood Beach, everyone remembers, with that evocative cover of the woman in the sand, and it's kind of like the red sky and the sun, and she's being dragged down into the sand. That image is pretty scary. It's actually the poster art, the original poster art for Blood Beach is better than the movie itself, I have to admit. It's kind of a boring movie, but it has some really good parts in it. And, John Saxon's in it, so it's definitely worth seeing for that. Again, Media, Home Entertainment, puts out a lot of good stuff, and this is one of the ones they put out. Blue Monkey. Now, Blue Monkey, I remember mostly as a VHS tape that I rented from my aunt, and the RCA Columbia tape, and then I was supposed to return it, and I never did, so it was like a few months late from the video store. I ended up returning. I remember sneaking it back into the video store, and then they called me about it. I think I lied and said I returned it. So I got out of those late fees somehow. I was a foolish kid. What can I say? I didn't want to pay hundreds of dollars for Blue Monkey. My aunt was furious when she found out that I didn't return it. Carnival of Fools is next on my list. Carnival of Fools is another title for Death Wish Club. Now, Death Wish Club is a movie, if you know me, is a movie that I love. It's one of my favorites. It's certainly one of the oddest movies I've ever seen. Completely out there. And Carnival of Fools is another title for it. It has pretty good artwork. It's one of those big VHS covers, those big box ones. And I love a good big ass VHS box. I love that they did that with artwork for horror. They really wanted to dazzle you with the blood and gore on these covers, and the artworks and the pictures, and back then it was either big VHS horror, big box VHS horror, or porn was big boxed. So I don't know. It tells you right there what the priorities were in the video store in the 80s: horror and porn. All good things, of course. Curfew was released on New World Video. It was a New World Pictures release, a little movie, kind of slipped through the cracks of time. I remember liking that one. It's a little like kind of a home invasion kind of movie. It's a good one though. I definitely liked it. Dance of the Damned is an interesting one because it's a movie directed by Kat Shea of Poison Ivy and The Rage Carry 2. This is one of her earlier stripper films. This is a movie that I say is the best mulleted vampire meets stripper movie ever. It really is a movie about these two characters who connect and talk for about 90 minutes and just have a night together. And it's simple. It's a horror movie still. There's some murder and all that, bloody stuff. But it really is about two people connecting. And it's really interesting. It's really interesting to me. It kind of goes places you don't expect a genre movie of this time period, the late 80s. This is 89. And certainly a movie about strippers and all that stuff. You don't expect it to go to the places it does in this movie. And Kat Shea is always a very insightful director and always makes things better than it have any right to be. And I like that about her as a filmmaker. And Dance of the Damned is definitely a movie that I happen to love and would love to see get released finally on DVD and Blu-ray. I feel like they really do need to mine the Roger Corman catalog, that New Horizons kind of period of where a lot of the stuff hasn't been released still. So whoever has that catalog can do that. Please get Dance of the Damned out there. Deadly Games has great artwork. Has really evocative artwork. I don't know. It looks like the kind of artwork that some would paint or spray paint on the side of a van in the 70s. There's something really striking about it. I certainly would paint the artwork of Deadly Games on the side of my van. I need a van, by the way. That would be pretty awesome. No one's driving them anymore. So maybe it's time to me to bring it back. To customize my own van. And, of course, have a VCR inside of it and a TV so I could watch these videotapes in my van and shag carpeting, all the fun stuff. Plushy steering wheel, dice hanging from it. I'm gonna hit up all the 70s cliches in my van. Disco ball. My rock band cousin, had one of those customized vans. I remember really enjoying that. I drove it a few times when I was 12. That was fun. I had to drink a little bit, of course. It's good times with a van. Deadly Games, the movie itself, is pretty good. It has some Steve Railsback is in it. A few other interesting people pop up in it. It's a good movie. It's kind of underrated, but has a really killer ending, I would say. I'm not going to say more than that, though. The Deadly Intruder, I don't remember much about, other than Danny Bonaducci's in it. It's one of those clamshell Thorny My tapes. I have it because somebody said that Danny Bonaducci gets midget tossed into a TV into it. So that's the reason why I got that tape. And I still have that tape. That was like, oh, he does? Sold. Death Weekend. Why is it Death Weekend, aka House by the Lake, on DVD and Blu-ray? That has a pretty big cult audience. William Fruitt directed it. It's Brenda Vaccaro's in it. Don Stroud is the bad guy. It's a really good horror movie. Canadian exploitation. I really like this movie, and I really think it would probably do well for whoever releases it on DVD and Blu-ray. It was on Vestron VHS. God, Vestron and that logo, I love it so much. I'm glad it's back to some degree with the Vestron label on Blu-ray. But there's so many Vestron tapes that could get a release. This is so many. Certainly Death Weekend is one of them. Dream Demon. Dream Demon is an unusual movie. It kind of came out of nowhere when I caught it on VHS. It was on this Warner tape. I'm like, wow, Warner Bros. Put out this movie called Dream Demon. What is this thing? Kathleen Wilhoit is in this movie? What? So I rented it. I'm like, wow, it's like this British movie with Kathleen Wilhoit in it. It's like a British gothic supernatural horror movie. I think it was in London, set in London. And I was like, wow. And it was kind of surprising. I really dig it. And anything with Kathleen Wilhoit in it, for sure I'm going to watch and enjoy. And she's pretty good at it. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on with that one. I guess because maybe Warner Brothers owns it and they don't care, obviously, about their catalog. So, now that other companies have access to Warner Brothers, like, I know Scream Factory's been putting out some Warner Brothers stuff. Warner Archives puts out stuff on Blu-ray. I think Dream Demon, it seems relatively obscure, but it's a good movie, I would say. It's worth people seeing, for sure. At least a DVD of it, people. Come on. Another one of those movies that was only released on VHS officially. Has Oodles of Atmosphere, has Leslie Donaldson as the final girl. It's very creepy. It was released on bootleg-ish kind of DVDs. Very very VHS quality DVDs. I'm pretty sure they didn't acquire the rights to put it out on DVD. I have one of those copies that I've got somewhere, and it doesn't yet. I'd rather just watch the VHS at this point because it's the same quality. So strange why this one hasn't been released. I don't know if it's a rights issue. It's a Canadian movie, more exploitation. It would definitely be one of the, a lot of these slasher movies from the 80s have gotten a release on Blu-ray, so it's one of those ones that kind of puzzled me. Like, why isn't Funeral Home on Blu-ray? It would look good. For sure. I think it would benefit from a better transfer, the atmosphere of it. Haunts. Haunts is a good one. Really great cover. Good artwork. Not sure why that hasn't been released, but hey, it's from the director of Tomboy and Graduation Day, Herb Fried. Those are fun movies. I like Haunts too. It's a little bit different in tone from those other ones. So I would say it's a bit more like almost like watching a Ingmar Bergman horror movie. And I mean that in a really good way, because Ingmar Bergman has made some really creepy movies. And it's definitely more arty than you would think it would be, but interesting. And I like Haunts. It's good. Home for the Holidays. Not the 1990s movie, but the one from the 70s, a TV movie with the all-star cast, Sally Field being one of the stars of it. I talked about it in the very first podcast second podcast for the Horror for the Holidays podcast, and I remember enjoying revisiting that when I revisited then. It's a good TV movie about killing, death over the holidays, kind of a proto slasher of TV of that time period. Yes, another big box VHS. Needs some loving on DVD and Blu-ray. I like that some of these TV movies are getting releases. The Night Stalker, Night Strangler, Trilogy of Terror. I've seen a couple of other things being announced on Blu-ray, so it's nice. And Bad Ronald, of course, was released. I love that these movies look so good on Blu-ray. They look better than they've even when they aired initially on TV. It's amazing. Home Sweet Home is a Thanksgiving movie slasher. And wow. Body by Jake, isn't it? Body by Jake. Jake Steinfeld. He is quite a character. It's quite a weird slasher movie. It has a weird tone to it. Comedy, horror? I don't know. I think it's played straight, but it's weird. And it kind of has to be seen to be believed, to be honest. Vanessa Shaw is in it. She went on to be in stuff like Eyes Wide Shut and Ladybugs. Can never forget Ladybugs. The Housekeeper is a movie with Rita Tushingham. I thought it was initially when I was a kid, it was British, but it's a Canadian movie. Kind of like Blank from Hell kind of vein. And I didn't talk about it on that podcast, but here it is. It's in my horror collection. The Housekeeper. Hunter's Blood is another one of those movies where I just kind of scratch my head. Why isn't this on DVD and Blu-ray? I'm assuming the rights. It's another Corman production. Has a good cast in it. Really good cast. I remember that Embassy VHS tape pretty well. I remember the day I got it. My grandmother actually told me to pick it up. She's into those kind of like Deliverance-like movies. This is a bit more like horror than some of them, but yeah, it was. I remember seeing it and being kind of surprised that it was as good as it was. I was expecting it to be kind of a throwaway Deliverance knockoff, but these movies do kind of freak me out. Like movies like Southern Comfort and Deliverance and Hunter's Blood. They are a subgenre that I like for sure. So yeah, Hunter's Blood, get a release, please. We need you. I Dismember Mamba is another creepy movie from the 70s. Now, the big box VHS tape. creepy artwork about a man and a little girl, and it gets to some weird places, and very 70s, I would say, but definitely creepy. It had a kind of a sequel in the 90s with John Savage playing Albert, and poor little Annie grown up. It's a strange one for sure. Just Remember Mama, the original, and the sequel, even that was also pretty weird too. But I like both. I Was a Teenage Zombie is a movie that's more noteworthy for its soundtrack. If you look it up, the soundtrack has some pretty heavy hitters on there, and that's probably the reason why this thing was only released on VHS. I think imagine the music rights would cost a fortune to get this thing available on DVD and Blu-ray, but you never know. It's happened before. So I would definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. I'm not sure, it might be available somewhere on YouTube. I haven't checked to see if it was, but it's one of those movies that more than likely would show up somewhere like that. Innocent Prey is a kind of slasher movie with PJ Souls. You may have heard of her. It's an Australian slasher movie. I think it starts off like in Dallas or Houston, and then it moves locations to Australia as she goes to Australia to escape some bad guy. It's an interesting one. It's not like completely scary, like, you know, it's no Halloween, let's put it that way. But you get to see PJ Souls in a cowboy hat and really huge hair. And Martin Balsam is definitely really creepy in it. I mean, for sure. I think it's definitely worth checking out. Jack Be Nimble. Speaking of Australia, this is a New Zealand horror movie. Kind of overlooked. Time's kind of forgotten a little bit. I remember it had some good notice when it came out in the 90s. Like, I would say it came out around 92, 93, somewhere around there. And it had good notice, but just kind of, Alexis Arquette's the star of it. It just kind of got lost. I don't know. Just a lot of these movies, only VHS releases, right? So they kind of get lost over time. But hopefully more people will see it. It's a good one. Killing at Hell's Gate is a TV movie with Robert Urich. Has like Deborah Raffin as like an all-star cast. I would say I would put in the man versus nature category of horror. This is a subgenre of horror. I remember liking that one a lot when it came out. The Kindred, of course, is in my collection, so waiting for that Synapse Blu-ray. The Ladies Club is another interesting one. It's a movie that it's like the only movie in my VHS collection that doesn't have a cover, which upsets me. I need to get another copy now because I don't have the VHS cover for Ladies Club. I somehow don't have a cover for that one, which is strange. I like that one. That's another women revenge movie, and it goes to some interesting places with that. It won't spoil the fun. Ladies Club is a good one. Media Home Entertainment, of course. Lies is a key videotape. Good cover because it's like mostly black with focusing on a woman's eyes. Is kind of akin to The Fifth Floor. These women who are kind of locked up in these mental wards, and just kind of are struggling to prove their sanity, you know. And I like the plot of this one. This is I think it was written by the Wheat brothers. They wrote and directed a movie I like a lot called After Midnight, a horror anthology. I think it's one of my favorite horror anthologies. I would put that up there with Creepshow. Love it. And they did a pass on the screenplay for Nightmare on Elm Street 4. They wrote a bunch of things around this time period. I would say between like mid 80s to late 80s, and Lies is one of theirs, and I really like that one. It definitely needs to be seen. It's a good one. Listen is kind of a 90s erotic thriller slasher movie. Definitely has that slasher movie quality to it. a woman who I think it's Brooke Langton of Melrose Place, and she was in other stuff like The Replacements and a few other movies. She kind of eavesdrops on people's phone calls. Like her phone kind of gets reception from other phones in the building. I think she lives in an apartment building. I love apartment building movies. And she starts eavesdropping on conversations, and there's a killer, and he's killing off women, and I guess while watching the movie, it might be obvious who the killer is, but I don't know. I like it. It's a kind of a lurid quality to it. It has that very 90s softcore quality about it that's very generic, but also alluring at the same time, and comforting, because it was very much of that time. I don't know. I like it. This is one of the better ones for sure of that, because it does have that slasher quality. Listen, I think Orion put it out on VHS. Maniac. Now, this is not Maniac the Joe Spinell. This is another Maniac movie that I have in my collection. I think it was released on Blu-ray. I just haven't gotten around to upgrading it, and Oliver Reed's in it. So, so if you want to, I was at some point I was trying to be a slasher completist. I was getting all these kind of slasher movies or proto slasher movies and having it in my collection. So I still have a lot of them left that I'm like, why do I have Maniac? I'm not sure if I ever really liked it that much, but I have it. And of course, you can't compete with the Joe Spinell Maniac. Hello. Speaking of sort of slasher movies, Midnight Ride. Midnight Ride is a really good one. This is a movie that's Michael Dudikoff. It was in a series of many action movies, direct-to-video, and some had theatricals, where he's a cop, and there's like a bad guy of some kind, and he has to stop the bad guy. In this one, he's the cop, and the bad guy is Mark Hamill. Yes, Luke Skywalker, who's a serial killer who's collecting people's eyes. It has to be seen to be believed. Mark Hamill's crazy over the top in this movie, and I mean that in the best way possible. He's kind of hard not to watch. You just kind of have to watch Mark Hamill in Midnight Ride. He gets pretty fucking nuts in this one. I love watching him in this. It was a movie, a video Giacinides directed it, I think, under another name maybe. He did that a lot. A lot of his movies, or even the movies he produced, were shot in scope. So 235 anamorphic widescreen. So anything that was on VHS looked terrible. I think this was on a Warner, because Warner did this. Warner released a lot of the Canon titles. This is a Canon movie. So it looks not so good on VHS. So I've always wanted to see this movie in a proper widescreen, because I think it would be even better. It's very has a very specific visual style of that time period. A lot of movies kind of looked a certain way, and I think would greatly benefit from a proper release, for sure. And Midnight Ride is definitely a fun one. I like that one a lot. Mikey, I talked about on the From Hell podcast. Murder by Phone, we just mentioned. Yes, I have it on VHS, one of those Warner clamshell VHS tapes. Love it. Love the VHS tapes. And do I love Murder by Phone? Probably not, but I love the idea of it. And Richard Chamberlain's in this movie about phones killing people. It's kind of awesome. I'm sure they could do a remake too with cell phones. So do that. Someone get on it now. Write your Murder by Phone remake, reboot. Get Jamie Lee Curtis in it.
And now, for the man who can make your dreams come true, it's the one and only Freddy Krueger.
Oh God, he's coming back!
Yes, Freddy's back with a very special offer that may just revive some of your worst nightmares. Starting now, you can own Nightmares 1 through 4 for just $19.95 each. so you can join Freddy anytime you like.
You've got the body. I've got the brain.
Look for this special offer along with our 3-pack collector's set of Nightmares 1 through 3, now available in this lovely package. So tell your friends. And pleasant dreams.
My brother has bad dreams. He does. Is a good one. It's from the 70s, very early 70s, and it's very much a 70s kind of horror movie. It has that feel and quality. It's very disturbing and creepy for sure. I like it a lot. My Demon Lover, which I could replace because I just upgraded that on DVD, came out Warner Archives. Yay! Thank you, Warner Archives, for releasing My Demon Lover. A movie that hasn't been released, hasn't gotten much love over the years, is Nightlife. Nightlife is a great little zombie movie with Scott Grimes of the Critters movies, and he was on like ER and a few other things. Don't know why this movie hasn't had much love and didn't get a theatrical. It went straight to VHS. I think it was meant to go theatrical. It seems like it would have been. Went to VHS, where I first saw it, and never released on DVD and Blu-ray. I feel like this is that cult movie that from that time period that feels very late 80s, that more people would appreciate if they actually watched it. I certainly like it, and I'm a fan. Nightlife. Nightmare in Badham County. Nightmare in Badham County is a TV movie from the 70s, like I want to say the mid-70s. It has like a good cast to it. Deborah Raffin again, I mentioned her a lot today. Chuck Connors, Oliver Reed. There's quite a few people in it. Vidmark Entertainment released it on VHS. Now, when they released it on VHS, they actually released the R-rated version, not the TV movie version. What happened with this one was it kind of got popular because of Deborah Raffin overseas, and they shot additional footage for it. So it was like an R-rated movie in other countries, whereas it was a TV movie in ours. So they released the actual R-rated version on VHS. They might have been separate versions, but I have the R-rated version. And so you get to see like a TV movie with some nudie stuff in it. No Place to Hide is Kathleen Beller TV movie that she did. She did a few of that time period, the early 80s, and this is one of the ones that I have. I have I'd Be Afraid of the Dark, I think it was. And there's Deadly Messages as well. I think I have all three. And I like this one too, for sure. Mariette Hartley is in it. Amanda Reyes of Made for TV Mayhem did a great podcast on it, so go look for that. Go look for the TV movie she did about Kathleen Beller. This and Deadly Messages. Good, really good podcast. I love her podcast, so check it out. Made for TV Mayhem. Open House is a slasher movie with Adrienne Barbeau from the 80s, mid to late 80s, 87. It's about a realtor, so I can relate. And is it a good movie? No, it's not a good movie. But Prism Entertainment put out the video. But I, for what it's worth, slasher movies of the 80s, I kind of have to have them in my collection. And good or not, it has some memorable things about it. I'll say that. And Adrienne Barbeau, of course I have it in my collection. The Orphan. I'm going to take another swig here. The Orphan is a horror movie from the 70s. Came out, around 80, around then. Came out around the same time as Friday the 13th, and this is the movie that originally had the title, Orphan Friday the 13th, in the title. But the production of Friday the 13th, both of these movies shot in New Jersey, ironically, wanted to use the title Friday the 13th, so they paid for the rights to it. So in some places, this movie is known as the The Orphan, Friday the 13th, or just The Orphan. So, yeah, I like it. It's a movie that's very unique. It has a very interesting quality to it. It feels very late 70s, whereas I guess Friday the 13th feels a little more like the transition of 70s and 80s. This one definitely feels of its time. It was shot in a town that kind of where time stood still in New Jersey, where it does look very much of another era, and they use that to their benefit in the movie. Very different movies, of course, but I like both for different reasons. And Friday the 13th, of course, is the popular one. This one never got released on DVD at all. The Orphan is a good one. The Orphan, Friday the 13th, I would say. Clamshell, Prism Entertainment, Prism Video. Love you. Love all you've done. And someone please mind their catalog. A lot of good ones in there. The Paperboy is a movie. Nice. Thanks for drilling right behind me while I'm talking on a podcast. Don't you know what I'm trying to do here? Talking about horror movies. I'll try to speak loudly. The Paperboy is a From Hell movie. I didn't get a chance to talk about it on the From Hell podcast. I wanted to, but I got caught up in the love for Mikey and the other Orphan movie called Orphan. So I skipped The Paperboy, but I have it on VHS. I revisited it. It's a lot of fun. William Katt. Now, William Katt is in this movie wearing a sleeveless deep V-neck sweater with Charlie Brown style V-neck sweater. It's just, you have to see it. And he has like a beard, and just like, what is William Katt doing with his look in this movie? But he's cultivating a certain kind of look, and I don't know. You have to see it to believe it. The Paperboy is a lot of fun. Not quite Mikey fun to me, but it's fun. And that was a Republic Republic Pictures home video release, and yeah, I need to. That one needs a release. I think it will eventually, hopefully. Phobia is another strange one that hasn't gotten a release. Maybe someone decided, no, you shall not have this, because this is a movie by John Huston, and he's a classy director. He does not make slasher movies. And no, but he did make a slasher movie. It's called Phobia. It came out in 1980. It has like a bunch of people in it. It has Paul Michael Glaser from Starsky and Hutch in it, and a bunch of others. And it was made in Canada, and yeah. It's imaginative, for sure. The execution might not be as good as the ideas of this movie, but I certainly like it, and I certainly think it warrants a release on DVD and Blu-ray. Again, yeah, classy, maybe. Too classy, not classy enough. It falls in that crack somewhere, so maybe that's why it hasn't gotten a release. But I enjoy Phobia. I have a phobia. I have certain phobias that could be exploited, so I wouldn't want to be part of this group of people who have their phobias turned against them, for sure. That idea scares me greatly. Poor White Trash Part 2 is a fun one. SF Brown Rig. I don't know if you would call this movie fun, but like those backwoods kind of horror movies creep me out, for sure. And I certainly will not forget Poor White Trash Part 2. The Prey, another backwoods kind of horror movie, is kind of well known among slasher film fans. Thorny in My Tape has very evocative VHS cover artwork. Everyone remembers it on the video store shelf. The movie itself may not be super exciting because it's a lot of nature footage and random murders, seeming murders, strung together. So maybe not the best way to spend your time. But yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy it for what it is. I kind of like the idea that it's like nature footage and slashers and killings. It's weird. That's why sometimes like rewatching these movies from the 70s and 80s because you get something definitely different than you did in the 90s and beyond, right? A little something extra, a little something unexpected, whether it be nature footage or bounty of nudity or I don't know, just like a quality that doesn't exist in movies anymore, like because things have gotten either safer or harder edge. I don't know, sometimes it seems like both sometimes. Strange. Psychic is a horror movie from the director of My Bloody Valentine. It's not a slasher movie. It's, well, there's some slasher murders in it, but Zach Galligan and Catherine Mary Stewart are in it. Michael Norrie's in it. It kind of has an interesting tone and quality to it as a winter set horror movie. It's shot in Canada. I have a lot of Canadian horror movies I've noticed. A lot of the good ones were made there. That's why. And I like it. Vidmark, I think, put it out on VHS. I have the VHS, obviously. That's why I'm talking about. Psycho from Texas is a big box VHS tape. It's kind of misogynistic and weird. Linnea Quigley's in it. But it's definitely a movie of its time, for sure. I haven't revisited it in a long time. Rampage is a horror movie from the director William Friedkin about a serial killer. It's some really, really creepy imagery this movie has, and it becomes kind of a courtroom movie too, and Michael Biehn as a DA. Its tone is not quite what you'd expect, but I have to say this movie really chills me. It's very chilling, and I really like it. And I'm surprised it hasn't gotten a release. I think Miramax may have the rights to it, and it was released on Paramount Home Video, so whoever has the rights to it needs to put it out. It's William Friedkin, for God's sakes. Reflections of Murder is a TV movie remake of Diabolique. I like it. You know, I like those kinds of 70s throwbacks to like older films. Some of them were more successful than others. This was one of the better ones. Scared Stiff, we mentioned before. Ben Schur's pick. I definitely need to revisit it soon. I haven't seen it in a while, but Andrew Stevens is in it. It's good. Screams of a Winter Night. Horror fans definitely know this one. Sort of like an anthology horror. It hasn't had a release. I know there were talks about putting it out on Blu-ray. I wasn't sure if it was Code Red or someone like that tried to get it, but I don't know. Those talks kind of disappeared. It needs to release for sure. It's a good one. She's Dressed to Kill is a TV movie, kind of proto-slasher. Again, I like a lot of those TV movies of that time period. This pairs well with, say, Home for the Holidays, in that vein. I like it. Needs a release. Shoot is a men go into the wilderness. The wilderness is not so kind to them. Men turn on each other kind of movie. Yeah, again, a subgenre I like. Those kinds of movies. So it's a good cast too. Ernest Borgnine, for sure, sticking out in my head. Spasms, the movie I just recently upgraded to Blu-ray, just waiting for the Blu-ray to come in so I can get rid of my VHS tape. Stepfather 3 only made it to VHS. There was no love for Stepfather 3 on DVD. Strange, because it's not a bad movie. I would say Stepfather 3 is actually quite enjoyable. It doesn't have Terry O'Quinn in the lead, so maybe it loses points for that, but I think it's actually a pretty good movie for what it is. And jackhammering now. Sweet. Sudden Death is a kind of female vigilante movie from the 80s that I like a lot. Or liked a lot at the time. I haven't seen it in a long time, so I can't really properly say if I still like it. It has a very memorable cover of a woman in red with a gun. She's no Dirty Harriet, I think it says on the cover, and that's great. Terror on Tape is one of those big box horror VHS things they did in the 80s that kind of like highlights movies from a certain label, and I like those. Terror on Tape has a great cover. Terror on Tour is a movie that I haven't seen in a long time. I remember thinking it was completely ridiculous or stupid, or both, and probably needs to be seen. Slasher movies with rock musicians and clown makeup, they're not that easy to come by, right? Kind of surprised this one hasn't been released on DVD, or something like Vinegar Syndrome is bound to put it out. It was on Media Home Entertainment. The Touch of Satan. I like a lot of those 70s occult movies. This is one that kind of sticks out in my head. Vendetta, I think it's coming out on Blu-ray from Scream Factory as a double feature with something else. Female women in prison revenge movies. Those are always fun. Vicious. Vicious is an interesting one. I think it's Australian. And I think it was written by the same guy who did Muriel's Wedding. Interesting, right? The Vindicator. I haven't seen that one in a while. It was a Key Video, kind of Canadian horror sci-fi mashup with Pam Grier in it, and great cover. And I remember it being kind of fun. It was with the director of Visiting Hours too. And Wavelength is kind of like a sci-fi horror. The few recognizable faces. I want to say Robert Carradine is in it, and a few others. I'm surprised that one hasn't been released either. I remember liking that one. So a lot of, I'm probably missing some. I know I have a few more VHS tabs that I need to go through that are in another box somewhere, but those are the ones that I went through recently. And I like horror movies on VHS again, because like a lot of these artworks, when I just look at them, it's like sometimes even just looking at a horror VHS tape is enough. You go watch the movie too, of course, but the box art just really takes me back to that time period of being in the video store and just being a completely happy kid looking at this stuff. I mean, those are great days, and just looking at stuff on Netflix or Hulu, whatever, just clicking through and like looking at these whatever artworks they choose to put on these menus on these streaming services just is not the same. It doesn't give you that same atmosphere and quality that we all grew up with in the 80s and 90s. It just was a part of our childhood and really made us, kind of formed us as movie fans. We didn't rely on IMDb to like look up stuff back then. We had video guides, like I had the Video Hound, and people used the Leonard Maltin book. We cross-referenced things whatever way we could to find out more information about the things we were interested in. We had to do some digging. Is the big point I'm trying to make with this stuff. We had to find these things. Some of us went to several video stores to rent different kinds of movies because they didn't have, like, say, the one store that had everything they wanted. They had to go to several. I remember doing that. I was fortunate enough to grow up in places where the video store was very popular. And having some really, really, truly great video stores around me, really close to me, getting whatever pretty much I wanted, and getting a great education from it, from film. And I'm very thankful those times of being at the video store and misspent youth, man. I know you could do you could go to your your video store and spend hours and hours and hours, and I did. At the video store, just like looking at boxes, waiting. I would stand there patiently waiting for a certain new release to come in, or asking them like, when is this coming back? It was a great time in that late 80s, especially because that's when stuff was coming out a lot of stuff was coming out for the first time on VHS, and in addition to the new releases that were coming out, a lot of horror VHS. So it was just a great time to be a kid and to watch the stuff at the store. Go to the store, watch stuff at home, bring 3, 4, 5 videotapes home, watch them all, go back, return them, get more. Really utilize that membership. I remember like when video stores like would charge for a membership, and it was like a premium to have a VCR was like an expense in the 80s. This was not like a cheap thing to have. This is not like now where you can buy a Blu-ray player for like $30 and just get a cheap whatever from Amazon, buy something cheap from somewhere. You had to really invest your time. You had to really invest your money. This was like an event in your life, going to the video store or buying something or just or renting. It was like a true event in your life. And for me, it was an event that I repeated all the time because I had to. That's what I chose to do with my time, and as a kid, and being an ultimate indoor kid of the 80s and 90s, you would just spend all your time watching movies and not knowing you were kind of getting this film education by watching them, but you were just simply enjoying movies on a pure level. That's what, just watching videotapes in general means to me. It just takes me right back to that time, more so than any like DVD or Blu-ray loaded features packed Blu-ray can do. But at the same time, those Blu-rays do they make me excited as well, and we're going to get right into that right after this.
Welcome to the world of terror. When I'm not busy embalming bodies, which isn't often, I like to relax with some good family reading. Let me introduce you to my personal library of Fangoria, the leader in horror entertainment. What a fascinatingly hideous cover of Freddy Krueger. And devilishly candid reviews of the latest horror videos. And gloriously bloody color photos from the newest Friday the 13th. They're all here in Fangoria. Can I persuade you to subscribe? Let the dead bodies wait.
So this part of the podcast, I just wanted to talk about the Blu-ray releases from this year and how excited I was for a lot of them, and highlight my favorites of the year. Now, we're living at a time where Blu-ray is reigning supreme, and we're getting a lot of stuff released. This is like the halcyon days of DVD, when a lot of stuff was coming out for the first time widescreen on DVD, and that was amazing. Like companies like Anchor Bay were doing the Lord's work by releasing this stuff for the first time widescreen, and it looked great, so much better than VHS. And nowadays we have Blu-ray, where we get even better picture quality, much better picture quality, and you get all these features and we just this bounty of pleasures with all these kinds of movies being released. And it's super exciting, of course, to have that again. So I get to not only revisit some movies that I really like, but also watch them for the first time, because a lot of these obscurities are seemingly coming out of nowhere from these companies. I would say like places like Vinegar Syndrome's digging up some interesting stuff. And then like people like Kino Lorber is putting out a great load of quality catalog titles, and Arrow doing great stuff, and Scream Factory and Criterion. All these companies are doing all this stuff, putting out all this great stuff, and at the same time, and seemingly probably competing with each other for your dollars, for your minimal dollars. Like, how much money can we possibly shell out for all the stuff that's coming out right now? So you have to kind of be choosy. You got to kind of pick and choose the ones you want, because we can't afford all the stuff. We're not super rich. We are, people who generally love and appreciate film are not, don't have an endless supply of money. I've encountered, working in the video business for many years. I kind of faced with the reality and day-to-day of it. And the majority of people who do love watching movies are not people who have money. movies were generally made for people who couldn't afford, like, to spend their time yachting or going on these expensive vacations or just like enjoying the finer things in life. So movies were kind of more the working man's kind of thing, or the poor person's entertainment, and I take a lot of pride in that. I mean, I grew up poor, and so I gravitated towards movies. Movies were a cheap babysitter for me, and so I got the entertainment value where I could. And now I get to collect these movies on Blu-ray, and I can't afford, like, say, thousands of Blu-rays. I can't afford to buy every single movie that's coming out. So I gotta be choosy, but I've been appreciating all the stuff that's been coming out for sure, and would love to own all of it. But I've definitely picked up quite a few good titles this year, and very happy to have them. Basket Case. Probably my ultimate release of this year so far, from Arrow Video. So many great extras on it. Looks so good. I mean, this is the definitive version of Basket Case. Love it so much. Basket Case is a movie that I watched a lot as a kid on media, entertainment, VHS. My sister and I would actually watch it a lot. It was one of those brother-sister bonding movies. Given the themes of the movie, it's interesting. Let's see, Night of the Living Dead Criterion. It's like the 50th anniversary of Night of the Living Dead. What a perfect release for that. It looks so good. Great extras. Kind of perfection, really. Doesn't get any better than that. Brain Scan from Shout Scream Factory. Now, why is this on my list? I don't know. I'll talk more about it probably on the Teen Horror podcast, but I like this one. It's a good release. The Addiction from Arrow is a great release. It is a title that kind of fell through the cracks for a long time. It was never released on DVD in the U.S., so I'm like, what is going on with The Addiction? Why is this movie not being released? And suddenly Arrow puts it out. I'm like, oh wow, my prayers have been answered. Really good film, and looks really good on Blu-ray. Last House on the Left by Arrow is another great release for them. They had some really good releases this year. I think they've a bit slowed down at the end of this year in terms of releases that I personally want, but they definitely had a handful of really good titles, and Last House on the Left, of course, is a great release, and what a really good commentary, too, by my pal Amanda and Bill Ackerman of the Supporting Characters podcast. Deep Rising from Kino Lorber Studio Classics is a great release. Extras packed. Now, Deep Rising definitely looks a lot better than it is right to look on Blu-ray. So it's a, schlocky creature feature movie, but it's a lot of fun. That movie is totally fun. I love it. Scream Factory put out a few of the John Carpenter's this year. The two in particular that I liked a lot were Someone's Watching Me. That's great on Blu-ray, again with Amanda Reyes. And Memoirs of an Invisible Man, which I didn't expect to enjoy as much as I did on Blu-ray, but I did. It's a fun movie. Not a great movie, but a fun movie. And sometimes those entertaining movies are just what you want to watch. The Changeling was released on Severin. That was another release that kind of came out of nowhere for me. I'm like, oh, so The Changeling is coming out on Blu-ray and Severin has it? I for a long time thought Warner Brothers owned the rights to it, so I guess the rights had expired and Severin picked them up. Warner Archive put out Bad Ronald, which I just revisited on Blu-ray, and that looks amazing on Blu-ray. I'm sure it looks even better than it did when it first came out on TV in the 70s. Pretty amazing. Warner Archive also put out Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 on Blu-ray. That also looks really good. Fun movie. No new extras, but they just carried over the extras that were on the DVD, which is great. Suspiria came out finally. I think it was in the works for like several years from Synapse. Again, Synapse does take a long time to put out their stuff, but they put out a good package with Suspiria.
When I go psycho, with me, Elvira, here at the Bates Motel? You will be my guest at Universal Studios in Hollywood for a monstrous bash at the Bates Motel. Shower, anyone? This Halloween, go psycho with Elvira and win a party with me as Slice. Slice! I just love that name.
The Ambulance was released by Scream Factory this year. That's the Larry Cohen movie. Kind of a wacky one. I like that movie. I like there was like this sense of humor it had. The Burbs, Shout Select put out. This could have been a Scream Factory release because to me it's a horror comedy or comedy horror. It's more comedy, of course, but I'm surprised they released it through Shout Select and not Scream Factory, considering it has its horror leanings. Couple of new releases: Insidious: The Last Key, a Sony release. I wanted to include some of the newer movies too because I like the Insidious franchise, and I like the new one too because it's really it really highlights the things I liked about the series in the fourth one. And Unsane from Universal, that's the Soderbergh movie, which is a bit more horror than you think it would be. I thought it was going to be a straight up thriller, and to me it's more of like it could kind of fit in with that Fifth Floor Lies kind of subgenre of movies, women who are locked up, told that they're crazy but they actually might not be, kind of genre. It fits very well into that category. The Baby from Arrow. The Baby. That's a good one. Ninja 3 The Domination got a re-release from Scream Factory with more extras, and it looks really good. I'm going to watch it tonight with a V8 juice in my hand. Who knows what kind of trouble I'll get into with watching that with V8 juice. Make sure my really hairy shoulders are out while watching it, like in the movie. The Reincarnation of Peter Proud, Kino Lorber. Kino Lorber did not realize they were putting this out, but they put it out, and I like that movie. It's a strange one. It's very 70s for sure, but I like it. It's Alive, the trilogy, is out on Scream Factory. Nice. Thank you for releasing that. The Boneyard, Code Red put out. I'm sure there's a few Code Red movies that I have that should be on my list, but for some reason I only have the Boneyard written down here. I need to take it to the Boneyard too. Let's see. Whatever that means. Flowers in the Attic on Arrow, UK only. So Arrow's doing all this great stuff, but UK only. They're doing Elvira and a couple other great things that I love. They did Heathers, but only UK. But it's a great release, so I have it. Gate 2 from Scream Factory. Love you, Scream Factory, for releasing Gate 2. The underappreciated Gate 2. Umbrella Entertainment released Silver Bullet. Yeah, Umbrella's doing some great stuff over there in Australia with some extras packed releases. So Silver Bullet, if you don't have it, it's a region-free Blu-ray. So good stuff there. The Unborn from Scream Factory. Why do I like The Unborn? This is one of those movies that I'm not sure why I like it, but I like it, so I own it and I have it. Dear Dead Delilah was released on Vinegar Syndrome. That's a good one. It's a good release. Doom Asylum on Arrow. Doom Asylum I revisited, and that's a crazy movie. Crazy comedy horror, I guess. It's pretty out there. And fun fact, the main location of that movie, the asylum of the title, is just a few miles away from where I currently live. It's in New Jersey. It's in Verona. And, not super far from Maplewood. Class of 1999 from Vestron. Vestron is doing some great stuff. They put out this. They put out Beyond Reanimator and Dagon. Thank you, Vestron, for putting out this fun stuff. Now please put out even more fun stuff. There's a lot of titles that you could possibly put out, but their output is kind of low. So, they're going through Lionsgate to do all that stuff, so they probably have to deal with that red tape business. Like I mentioned, Kino Lorber is putting out Night Stalker, Night Strangler, and Trilogy of Terror. All great releases. So happy to have those. Freeway 2 Confessions of a Trick Baby was released from Dark Force Entertainment. So I have Freeway 2 on Blu-ray, but not Freeway 1. It's very strange what gets chosen on Blu-ray, what doesn't. But Freeway 2 before Freeway 1. Okay, fine. If we must. I own it. And I'm happy to own it because it's a pretty weird movie. I love Freeway 1, of course. I think it's a great, great film. But Freeway 2 is a pretty out there bonkers sequel. A new one, Tragedy Girls. It was a horror movie that I liked a lot. Surprised I liked it as much as I did. Came out this year from Gunpowder and Sky, that label. Very little label. But I like that movie for sure. And the rest I'm going to mention are Scream Factory titles. Well, not all Scream Factory. Shakedown was from Scream Factory. Shakedown came out this year, and I absolutely love Shakedown. I talked about it in the 1988 podcast. Obsessed with that movie. Thank you for putting that out. It's good, really good release from Shout Select. And then Kino Lorber put out The Soldier, also from the same director as Shakedown, James G. Glickenhaus. So James G. Representing this year. Yay! So it's 2 of his fun movies are out on Blu-ray. Pick them up if you're really into fun, crazy action. And those certainly are that. And I would say the last title I'm going to mention today is one of my favorite releases of the year. And there's 2 releases of the year. Scream for Help from Scream Factory, and Maximum Overdrive from Vestron, which is, I just got in. So I haven't dug into the extras of that, but the artwork is great. And I'm really excited that Maximum Overdrive is on Blu-ray. I don't know why, because I had one of those movies I have a very complicated relationship with, like that I hated or liked a lot, or hated, liked a lot, go back and forth. But I actually do. Last time I watched it, I really enjoyed it, and how stupid it is, and fun it is, and a kick-ass soundtrack that it has. So I'm a big Maximum Overdrive fan now, of course, after all these years. And Scream for Help, which was always a movie that I thought was bonkers and ridiculous, and I loved it since it came out on VHS in 1987 when I first saw it, and loved it immediately. Like, what is this beautiful, amazing, bonkers movie? I want you in my life always, and I've had it in my life always for these past 30 years, and now it's on a glorious Blu-ray, again with a commentary by Amanda Reyes, this time partnered with Justin Kurzweil of the Hysteria Continues podcast. So the 2 of them get to talk about this movie. And I would say in a mostly loving way, and they did a really good commentary for it, and I really enjoyed it. To me, I enjoy this film a lot for many reasons. Every time I watch it, I get nonstop entertainment value out of it. It's completely fun for me, and crazy, and bonkers, and weird, and I just fall in love with it because it's all those things, and it's the ultimate Nancy Drew slasher movie in a way, and I just I'm just so glad it's on Blu-ray, and I'll be watching it a lot on Blu-ray, of course, as I've watched it over the years, and I own the soundtrack, and I listen to the soundtrack a lot. It makes me happy. I asked pals of the show about their releases of the year. Demetrios Patsiaris, he wrote in The City of the Living Dead from Arrow. Joseph Charlesworth wrote in The Last House on the Left from Arrow. Roberto Diaz, The Creature from the Black Lagoon Legacy Collection from Universal. Jason Blanco, The Changeling from Severin. Ben Scher wrote in Heathers from Arrow and Flowers in the Attic from Arrow. David Johnson wrote in Scream from Help from Scream Factory. And let's not forget Vinegar Syndrome. Can't wait for the October lineup, which just shipped. Dear to Delilah is great. Bloodhook is silly fun. And this is a homegrown oddity, and I ended up really loving it. Grave Robbers. Michael Robert wrote in The Addiction from Arrow. Chris Moore wrote in Flowers in the Attic from Arrow. And by the way, Chris Moore's one of his first films was released on DVD called Blessed Are the Children. It just came out. Bill Ackerman from the Supporting Characters podcast, the great podcast, and he also does From the Neighborhood, a great podcast on Blue Velvet. He wrote in Images from Arrow and the William Castle box set from Arrow and Night of the Demon from Arrow. Thank you guys for writing in. I really appreciate that. Some more upcoming titles that are coming out that I need to own. I'm going to mention those lastly today. Sisters from Criterion. I really need to get that. The Collector from Indicator. Indicator's doing some great stuff. I need to get The Collector. The Horror of Party Beach from Severin. The House on Haunted Hill from Scream Factory. I have that pre-ordered somewhere. Creep Show from Scream Factory. I need to dig up money for that. Torso from Arrow. The Killing Kind from Vinegar Syndrome. The Fifth Floor from Code Red. Candyman from Arrow and Scream Factory. Both have releases for it. Urban Legend from Scream Factory. The Critters Collection from Scream Factory. The Puppet Masters Special Edition from Kino Lorber. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation from Scream Factory. Blue Underground's doing a 4K of Maniac. Scream Factory is doing Starman Collector's Edition. And Scream Factory is doing Naked Vengeance and Vendetta double feature. All must-haves for 2018, for the remainder of 2018. I hope you guys are having a great October and enjoying your autumn, because I love this time of year so much. I love revisiting all these horror movies over and over. Even outside of the podcast, just watching random horror movies for me is just exciting. Just to indulge in that and eat candy that's bad for me, like candy corn and all the crap. Just enjoying the time of year. It goes so quickly, especially with the weather and all that stuff. So enjoy it, but also make horror. I also make horror my priority 365. I mean, all year round, really. But love to indulge it, of course, this time of the year. Thank you guys for enjoying. Thank you guys for listening and supporting the show. It means a lot to me, and I hope you'll enjoy the upcoming podcast. Hopefully, get it out soon. And thank you again. And I'll be seeing you around and trick or treating with you. What will you be going as? I might break out my Bucky helmet from last year. We'll see. From Halloween 4. I would love to go as Tina from Halloween 5. That's my my dream. Or just dream Tina coming out. She's alive. Tina's alive. Tina is alive, and she's coming over to talk about movies. So I need to go. Have a good night, guys, and a happy Halloween. And I'll be talking to you soon. Thank you all so much. Ciao for now.
Time to go down to the basement for some more hauntingly delicious Count Chocula cereal.
Don't look in the basement.
Eee, those eyes are looking at me.
Think I'll get some fruity Frankenberry from the cupboard. Don't look in the cupboard.
Oh, those eyes, they move.
Now the spooky, delicious part of your complete breakfast is even spookier.
Now Chocula's eyes really move. So did Frankenberry's.
He is looking at you, kids.
It was late one night in the castle of the Chicken McNuggets.
What are you making?
Sauce. We're using my mummy's recipe.
Mummy,
This better be good.
It'll be great.
Does your daddy have a recipe?
Now you can get McDonald's Happy Meal pails for
Halloween.
There's a pumpkin pail, a witch, and a ghost that glows in the dark. You can get a different one each week until
Halloween.
In the laboratory of Dr. Frankenstein, something incredible was created. The great taste of pure milk chocolate and delicious peanut butter. Unfortunately, no one would listen. And so the world would have to wait for the two great tastes that taste great together in Reese's Peanut Butter Cups.
They branded her a high school misfit. They taunted her day by day. Until they learned the hard way that the night belonged to her.
Carrie?
Sissy Spacek. From the modern master of suspense, Brian De Palma. Carrie. Saturday night at 8 on WTXX Channel 20.
Horror Weekend continues Sunday on WTXX Channel 20. Starting at noon, James Mason and David Soul clash head-on in Salem's Lot, Part 1. Then at 2, it's the shocking conclusion with Salem's Lot, Part 2. And finally at 4, Marsha Mason and Anthony Hopkins excel in the shocking terror classic, Audrey Rose. Brace yourselves for unspeakable thrills and chills as Horror Weekend continues Sunday right here on Connecticut's horror station, WTXX Channel 20.
Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, coming to video cassette.